Beloved Guru, we thank thee for thy many blessings on your devotees in the city of Las Vegas over the past 50 years. Make us strong and tireless as we seek God and as we seek to spread thy message of love over the next 50 years in Las Vegas. Om, peace, amen. And now as we begin our presentation on the 50th anniversary of our meditation group in Las Vegas, let us first give some acknowledgments to people who helped make this possible. First, we have the written archives from which much of the information came. Then we have Gloria Holbrook, one of the founding members who resided in Las Vegas from 1972 to 2002. She's currently in Edina, Minnesota, and Bob Furlow and I interviewed her twice by phone. We should thank Daisy Morgan, who resided here from 1980 to 1999, currently in Minden, Nevada, and she provided much information in several phone interviews. Also, we'd like to acknowledge Tim Jolly, who's been here since 1982, Bob Furlow, who's been here since 1984, and Carrie and Helen Zimmerman, now in San Diego, 1985 to 2004. This presentation was compiled and narrated by David Savugian, 1994 to the present. And we also want to say that all pictures here are considered to be under fair use laws. So we'd just like to give a little context for the founding of our Las Vegas meditation group. Of course, we all know that the SRF work began in 1920 in America, 3 years after the founding of YSS in India, and 52 years prior to the founding of the Las Vegas Meditation Group. And Swami Yogananda disembarked at Chelsea Harbor in Boston on September 19, 1920, to give his famous speech on the science of religion at the International Congress of Religious Liberals, now published in a book of the same name. And here's a famous picture of him with the other white-haired delegates, maybe one not white-haired besides Master. And then this was reported in the Boston Globe. And here's a picture of Chelsea Harbor in 1920. And then 100 years later, on the centennial, here's a similar picture of what Chelsea Harbor looks like now. And you can see the little bouncing star. The only building visible in both is the Boston Custom House Tower, which was the tallest building in Boston from 1915 to 1964 at 496 feet. Now a Marriott extended stay property. How the times do change. And when Master arrived in 1920, the tallest building in New York City was the Woolworth Building at 792 feet. And I imagine the tallest building in the world was probably the Eiffel Tower. Of course, not long after Master arrived in America, he began founding meditation groups and ashrams, first in the Boston area, where he remained from 1920 to 1924. So our own Las Vegas meditation group is part of a rich history of meditation groups. In fact, the first Yogoda meditation group in America was approximately in 1921 at Sister Yogmata's home, Alice B. Hazy, at 9 Lester Terrace in Boston. This is a picture of the first members. And you can still drop by that home and see the outside. 9 Leicester Terrace is still there. And then Yogananda's first ashram was built in 1922 at Hardy's Pond near Boston in Waltham, Massachusetts. And that's a little bit hard to find nowadays since there's a fourplex there at 70 Hiawatha Avenue. So one has to be discreet. Of course, the major acquisition was Master acquiring one of the 3 buildings of his dreams in Kashmir, Mother Center, 1925, Easter Sunrise Service. I think this could have been before he even owned the building, I'm not sure. This is a relatively old photo of Mother Center too. If you notice the trees, apparently he had just planted the deodar cedar and it was quite small compared to what it is nowadays. And then he called it the Mount Washington Educational Center. And next was Master's first true SRF temple built in the United States, the Golden Lotus Temple, built on the bluff in Encinitas in 1938, only 2 years after Master returned from India, his pilgrimage to India in 1935 and 1936 on the property given to him by his beloved disciple Rajarsi Janakananda. And this temple, you can see why it was named the Golden Lotus Temple. And the beautiful view out the window of the temple and what the lotus pond looked like in those days. Of course, only a remnant remains now, but Master lectured here for several years until 1942, when the temple crashed down the bluff towards the Pacific. Master was very sad, but as he told the story, Divine Mother was forcing him to build other temples so that this work of the great ones could expand. So in 1942, he founded the Church of All Religions, the Hollywood Temple. You can see the sign right above the entrance to the grounds where he's greeting some devotees, practicing the healing technique inside with Rajarsi in the pulpit. This table, cement picnic table, is now at Mother Center. Master playing the harmonium. And then in April 1951, he founded India House. That's the wonderful story Brother Anandamoy tells of how Master said, and to think, my little boys built this. And Brother said he was so proud to be one of Master's little boys. And then, of course, the Lake Shrine in 1950. Here is a picture of the dedication with Governor Goodwin Knight and his wife, some of the people in attendance, the golden lotuses that came from the Golden Lotus Temple in Encinitas, the famous picture of Guruji that's talked about in the 2nd annual issue of the new SRF magazine. This was the 50th anniversary celebration of Lake Shrine in 2000, which I was fortunate enough to attend with Gloria. We'll talk about her later. And there's Umamata on the left, Brother Anandamoy, Brother Bhaktananda, Brother Bimalananda, and of course Muktima and Sister Parvati were also there. These are 2 very recent photos that I took in 2022. And now we come to the 2nd annual SRF convocation in 1951, where Master recounts the discovery of Mother Center. These are some pictures from an old SRF magazine in 51. Here is Master meeting with the SRF Center leaders, meditation group leaders of that time, out of a total attendance of about 300 SRF members at the convocation. Here he's shown in India House with some of the sisters. And now I'd like to play part of his speech on August 26, 1951, where he spoke from the second floor balcony by loudspeaker. This is very relevant to all of his organization now and at all times because he speaks about the miracle of harmony. This is the closing talk where Master spoke to the devotees from the second floor balcony of the Mother Center. And this is a 5-minute excerpt from the CD that's available entitled Follow the Path of Christ, Krishna, and the Great Ones.
So it is very wonderful to say today you saw Arthur Prompter. He and I and 2 other boys motored here. And once my other secretaries in a big Packard car, they told me if you have a flivver, they will not listen to you here. So I had a Packard car, 7-passenger too. And we were driving past here, and I said, Arthur, stop here, stop here. And Arthur stopped. He's a very good driver and very good boy. 26 years he has known me. And I am so glad he is here. And some in the car, Miss Pratt, who is the editor of the autobiography, is a most wonderful soul. She does not know what rest is. While we are talking, she is editing other books. The thing is, what I was saying, as we were passing, Miss Pratt said, please, please don't enter somebody's state. You will be arrested. I said, but I want to go. I said, Arthur, come here. So Arthur and I came. He will testify to you. We stood there and I held the railing and said, Arthur, this place feels like ours. Isn't it, Arthur? Is Arthur here? Will you stand up, please? Isn't it true what I said? Louder. That's right. That I say only because to give the glory to God. Here was the promised land I came, and God showed me the land, and from here built not only organizations all over the world, but in India we have very big institutions, one by the river Ganges, but we are multiplying in India very fast, as well as all over the world. And imagine when Arthur came, there was nothing in the world at all. So you see how fast self-realization has grown. We have in SRF Shrine, as you know, a beautiful chapel, and India House here, then we have in Encinitas, and then we have in San Diego, and always we have very beautiful places. And then we have in Phoenix, and we have offering of many, many lanes, many, many places, which will not all be little churches filled with dogma. I want my churches, they are hives, but they must be filled with the honey of your realization. That's the one mark of self-realization you will see. I can say in years in my charge of this place, there has been no quarrels, only harmony. I have promised that the minute you quarrel, I'll walk out from here. So the thing is this, that with that mark, all our institutions have been nurtured by God, only by God. And that's why I want you, all of you, to live that harmony first of all. Wherever you create a center, create God in your heart. God is the honey, and church is the hive. A hive without the honey of God means nothing at all. And I want you to promise in your hearts tonight that you will never live this harmony or carry loud speech or anger in your heart. For a peaceful soul is the temple of God. God resides and speaks to men. Miracles are nothing. Many, many miracles have been performed in this work through this body. But the thing is this, the miracle of harmony which God has given through me, I think that is the greatest thing that has ever happened. The thing is You must meditate in every center, every individual. Morning and night, deeply meditate. Do your Kriya. And you cannot miss the boat. You cannot miss God and the Masters. But going 1/4 the way to New York, or half the way, or 3/4 the way, sleeping at the gate won't take you to New York. Likewise, not going 1/4 the way, or sleeping on the way, seeking 10 teachers, you have come to the right place. None can come unto me unless the Heavenly Father draweth him. And you have come in that place. Now you have to go to the end of your life, and then you will see, and lots of you will see before, as thousands of letters I receive, that they have seen God. They talk with God. And that's the way I want everyone to be.
Now, the next major event in SRF that's relevant to the founding of our meditation group, as you'll see soon, was that Sri Dayamata, or Sister Daya as she was called in those days, became the president in 1955 after the passing of Rajarsi Janakananda. This is the YSS magazine at that time. Just a few pictures of Dayama, her in the Babaji's cave there, and her with Guruji in the Encinitas Hermitage. And she visited India for the first time in 1958-59. Photograph was taken by Master's brother. And she visited with Swami Shivananda, a self-realized saint and founder of Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. He passed in 1963. Here she is in a procession in Simla, which is in the Himalayan foothills in the Indian state of Himachal Pradesh, about a 15-hour drive west-northwest of Dwarahat, the location of Babaji's cave. Here she is with Anandamoyi Ma. This was in Benares or Varanasi. And then we get to our group formation in 1972. Just a few of the locations we'll go over in a little more detail: 72, 73, 73 to 76, 76 to 93, 93 to 99, 99 to 2012, 2012 to currently, and where we'll be in 2032. Hopefully a permanent location. So this is the first correspondence from our group, from Center Department to our group, February 22nd, 1972. So Brother Bhavananda was our first contact in Center Department. He was a much beloved monk in SRF for many years, who served in our India ashrams for about 30 years. And if you read this first letter, it is apparent that our group was started briefly by a man named William Thomas, about which no other information is available. But in June, our second letter, June of 1972, we received another letter from Brother Bhavananda addressed to Ed Morgan, who was our real founder, and he took over in April of 1972, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later. So some context of what was it like in 1972. Many of us might remember some of the events. So Watergate, that was a big one for those of us in the US. Agents of Richard Nixon's re-election campaign were arrested while breaking into the office of the Democratic National Committee, which was at that time in the Watergate complex, how politics seem to recycle, and the ABM Treaty, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, signed by Richard Nixon and Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev in Moscow, if you can believe that. Nixon went to China, arrived in Peking, now Beijing, for a 7-day stay, which ushered in a new world of diplomacy for the U.S. Arab terrorists unfortunately murdered 11 athletes at the Olympic Games in Munich. And one I wasn't aware of was the Iranian blizzard of 1972, which was the deadliest blizzard in history. It dropped up to 26 feet of snow and killed over 4,000 people. So quite a bit more than the recent blizzard in this country. And what are some things turning 50 years old in 2022? Well, email. Ray Tomlinson invented internet-based email. Spam. The word spam, used in reference to electronic communications, comes from a 1972 Monty Python sketch in which two customers are lowered into a restaurant and everything on the menu contains spam. Okay, games. Pong. Nolan Bushnell founded Atari with an investment of $250. Where it has gone. Where it has gone in 50 years. Carnival Cruise Lines began sailing. The TV show Emergency introduced people to the concept of pre-hospital care and CPR. There were only 12 paramedic units in North America in 1972. Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical, opened in 72 in New York City on the East End. The most popular TV shows were All in the Family, Sanford and Son, and Hawaii Five-0. And a popular book at that time was Jonathan Livingston Seagull, a spiritual book, of course. Now back to context. What SRF events were happening in 1972 in the year of our founding? Well, Sri Dayamata, her sister Ananda Mata, and our fourth president, Mrinalini Mata, visited Mexico City in February 1972, our very founding month, and conducted satsanga for over 300 devotees. Here's Dayama, February 1972, from a magazine from that time. This magazine, the Summer 72 SRM. And here is Dayama leading chanting at the SRF Center in Mexico City in February. You can see her circled there. So that was the month we were founded. What about convocation? Back then it was called the Los Angeles Class Series. Summer 72, not long after we were founded. Here is a class in the Biltmore Hotel, where it was held then, in the Crystal Ballroom, where you can see Brother Anandamoy circled in white. Now this is interesting. The caption for this photo talks about this pepper tree in the Temple of Leaves and calls it the partially restored Temple of Leaves. So the current pepper tree, as of 2022, which is very large, is approximately the same age as our meditation group. And here is the closing banquet at the convocation. And for those old timers, you can recognize many of the speakers. Achalananda, Brother Achalananda is speaking. To the right of Master's picture is Brother Anandamoy, Brother Bhaktananda. You can see Brother Mokshananda. Dharmananda's on the end. You can see Brother Premamoy just to Achalananda's right. Santoshananda, you can see him in the not in the robe. These closing banquets were really very nice events where you got to eat with the brothers, and I think they continued probably ending in 1992, which was about 7 years after the convocation moved from the Biltmore to the Bonaventure. It moved there in 1985, and I think before the big centennial year of Master's birth in 1993, that was the year the banquets ended because there just wasn't enough room. Now, a few more SRF events in 72 and 73 around the time of our founding. Dayama and her entourage visited India, November 72 to April 73. This was her very last visit. Here she is meeting with the Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. Here is Dayama and her sister Anandama sitting there at the Taj Mahal. And there's Ma greeting the children. Spring of 73 magazine. Some more events from that visit. Here is a picture of her at the Ranchi Ashram. They named a day after her, Dayamata Day, March 4th, 1972. You can see the procession of YSS high school girls. And there's our fourth president who went along, of course, Sri Mrinalini Mata. She's giving an achievement award to a YSS student in March of 73. Another relevant event from around the time of our founding, about a year later, was the dedication of the new and present Phoenix Temple, which was dedicated in February of 73. Of course, they had been meeting there for a while in 72. And this shows the dedication service. This is the outside of the temple, current temple. Uma Mata, who's still alive, been a nun for 75 years, direct disciple. She was on the board of directors and officially dedicated the temple after first describing some of Dayama's current activities in India, that is the activities from the trip that was just shown. Here's a picture of her at that time from the Winter 72 magazine. The dedication service was actually presided over by Brother Bhaktananda, and he introduced Brother Anandamoy as the first resident minister. Brother Anandamoy originally had become a disciple of Master while in Phoenix when he found the autobiography of a yogi. So those are some of the events, contextual events from our time of our founding. And then our third correspondence, you saw the other two letters, was a letter written in January 6, 1973 by Marion Alston, our treasurer at the time, who 50 years later no one can really remember, but we have this handwritten letter where she talks about Ed Morgan being the leader of the group, assuming the leadership in April of 72, and that she became treasurer on May 4th of 72, and they had in the bank $126 at that time. So, and Ed became remained the leader until 1981. And here's a picture of him I found with the help of his sister-in-law, Daisy Morgan. He was played the trombone, and actually after he left Las Vegas, he became famous jazz musician in the Cincinnati area and was inducted into their Hall of Fame. So our first meeting location, which was documented by Marion Alston, just a few months, February 72 to October 72, was the St. Matthew's Episcopal Church at Newton Drive in South Nellis. It was constructed in 1963. It's still there. This photo is from 2021. And as you'll see in the audio excerpt from Gloria's interview, she recalls a church where they meditated, and she'll tell a little story about it. And the attendance is not known, but the rent was $45 a month. And then we moved, October, to the Torrey Pines Care Center. We were only there for a few months, and this is it. It's still there. The second meeting location. It's at Torrey Pines in West Okie, and it's documented in that letter. And Gloria also remembers a location out on West Charleston at a medical center that was under construction where they meditated on concrete benches when it was 100 degrees outside. So this is it. If you look on the Clark County Open Web, you will find permits for the building of this location in 1970. So this definitely jives with Gloria's memory about meditating at a place under construction. Average attendance is unknown. Again, it was $45 a month to sit on concrete benches in a construction area. Then we moved to a location right across from the old Moulin Rouge Casino. Our space was at 900 West Bonanza, and we were there from about February 1973 to January 1976 at our third meeting location. And the Moulin Rouge, interestingly, was the first integrated casino in Las Vegas, but it was shuttered by the Gaming Commission after only 6 months of operation. And here is a picture from 1955, right after the opening of the Moulin Rouge, quite a bit earlier than when we were there. And interestingly, this casino was featured on Life magazine back then. And you can also see there was a feature article on the war on virus diseases. So what was relevant way back in 55 is relevant now in 2022. While we were there, and you will hear Gloria talking about it, our average attendance, according to her, was only 3 people. It was her sister Carolyn, and Ed Morgan. We do not know the rent at that time. A few pictures from this location. This is the likely appearance in the 70s when we were in the neighborhood of the old Moulin Rouge, which, as I said, was closed. The old building burnt down. You can see the fire here in 2003. It was raised in 2017. Here's what the remainders of the sign look like in 2022. But you can see where we met here. If you look at that building with the kind of outside arches, that was the probable meeting location of our group in the early 70s, as confirmed by Gloria. This particular building was constructed in 1957, which you can find from the Clark County Open Web. And Gloria Holbrook recalls a scary walk through a parking lot enclosed with a chain link fence across from the Moulin Rouge. She recalls that when Bob and I spoke with her. And also there's a letter from Ed Morgan to Brahmachari Philip, who became Brother Ramananda, where it's written that they outgrew a small room on West Bonanza and moved to the new Highland Drive location. This was a January 30th, 1976 letter. So now I love this slide because this shows when we became quote unquote an official self-realization meditation group, because we first appeared in the directory at the back of the Self-Realization magazine in summer 1973. Of course, they don't do that anymore in 2022, but it was kind of a big deal back then. You can see the summer 1973 on the inside cover. You can see the directory, the beginning page of the directory in the back of the magazine. And then where we are listed in the directory is right here on this page, 62, Nevada, Las Vegas, Reno, Sparks. Now, let's listen to Gloria Holbrook, one of the founders of our group, along with Ed Morgan and her sister Carolyn, talk about the first years in the 1970s. Effectively, our group had 3 founding members who kept it alive during the 1970s, as I said, Ed and Gloria and Carolyn. And as one of our longest time members, Tim Jolly, has said, they had vowed to each other to attend their weekly meetings, come sickness or health, storm or sunshine. And that is exactly what they did for all those early years until more devotees began arriving as the years went by, unquote. And also from a letter by Daisy Morgan, sister-in-law to Ed, to Brahmachari Bradley, back in those days, now brother Narayananda. This letter in 1992 mentions the passing of Carolyn Rabideau, Gloria's sister, who left her body in 1991. And as Daisy says, was one of the 3 devotees to help get this group started many years ago. And then Ed Morgan himself passed to the astral in 2015. As I mentioned, he was a well-known jazz musician in Cincinnati. And then this is a photograph of Gloria Holbrook, one of the 3 founders. The photo itself was taken December 1995 on a trip that she and I took to Lake Shrine. And the recording is from a phone interview that Bob Furlow and I did on November 10th, 2021. So we'll hear about a 4-minute excerpt from a long interview with Gloria. It's a bit staticky in places because the connection wasn't real good, but it's very nice to listen to her tell her stories.
Oh, okay, I'm Gloria Holbrook, and I'm a member of Self-Realization Fellowship. I had my Kriya in May of 1966. Ed Morgan started the little group, which was like 3 of us, way back in the early 70s. And we went from place to place wherever we could find a place to meet on a Thursday evening. We did not have Sunday morning. We did it on Thursday evening after work. And Ed would round up these crazy places where we could sit for an hour and meditate. And we just went from there until eventually we had a room of our own. We located that. And other devotees came. And eventually the group grew. He was a hard taskmaster. You did not squirm, you did not move, you sat very still, sometimes on a bench without any back on it, in high temperature, and you meditated. And it was excellent training. I'm not complaining. It was very good training at the very, very beginning. And it was really nice finally to have a room because we were in some crazy places. Just the 3 of us on a Thursday evening. There were times after the hard days, like I say, hard days work, it was easy to decline and say, well, I think they'll pass up on this. And we say, no, you come. And that's the way it started. Funny little places that I don't even know how he was able to locate them, but he did. And we just kept going until eventually we had a permanent room and was able to settle down. And so we met in this church. It was very nice, in the chapel. And we sat in the first couple of rows, and we sat up front with the harmonium. And one Sunday it was raining, really raining hard. And we were going to settle down, and the roof started to leak. And so they put a bucket under to catch the water right next to us. And the water came down, and all through the meditation went ping, ping, ping. And it was another interesting, it was just another experience. Then another place was some kind of a complex, a medical complex, a nursing home, retirement place. It was under construction, though. It was kind of a mess. And so we would drive, and this was on West Charleston, beyond Rainbow, way out. And at that time, in the early 70s, there was not much out there. And we would drive out there. Sometimes after, a hard day's work, we'd say, oh, I don't feel like going. And they'd say, you come. And so this place was where you had to pick your way through construction material and wind your way around to this little area, a little place where he secured. It had a stone bench where Carolyn and I sat, and I don't know where he was, but across from us. It's a harmonium, and we chanted and did our meditation, sometimes in 100-degree heat, no air conditioning. It was rough, but we made it, and I don't regret a minute of it. And that was the mythical place. Remember where the Moulin Rouge was located way out in North Las Vegas years ago? I don't know if you remember that.
No.
It was across the street from the Moulin Rouge Casino, and it was kind of dark and closed down, and it was across the street from that. And it was, I think it was in North Las Vegas at the time. I thought it might be connected to the Postal Service, but I'm not. It wasn't the post office. It was just a building kind of with a chain link fence around it, and it was, because I remember going out there and I was nervous about the neighborhood. So am I done now?
Yep, for now, till we call you again.
Okay. It was great talking to you guys. I love it.
So that was Gloria, now in her 90s, recalling her experiences at the first 3 meeting locations of the Las Vegas Meditation Group. And then we moved in 1976. So in February 1976, we moved away from that small location across from the old Moulin Rouge Casino to really what was our first long-established meditation group location at 2324 South Highland Drive. And this is a current picture of that building. It was near Western Sahara, and we actually were in 2 different rooms upstairs in this building until 1993. So 17 years at this location. And one humorous fact is that one of our neighbors for 17 years was sort of infamous. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So our neighbors all those years were a topless club. Where else but Vegas? Now here's a bit of interesting history. Our first general report ever submitted to SRF Center Department in July of 1983 from Gloria Holbrook. Prior to that, no general reports or annual financial reports had been submitted. So here it is, and you can see that Gloria was both the coordinator and secretary and a service reader. We had 4 service readers. And on this particular part of the general report, you can see that we only had 1 service at that time, which was the meditation service on Sunday at 6 p.m. And we had 4 to 8 people that would show up for that. And the first 3 annual financial reports to the Center Department were completed before that first general report. They're 1979, 1980, 1982, and the first 2 were actually completed in 81 at the request of Center Department by Ed Morgan. So here are the first 2, and then 1982, and some of the interesting figures. Here are the offerings we had for the entire year, around $1,000 to $1,500. And here's our yearly rent, right around $1,000 outlined in red. What is our rent now? It is over $40,000. And the cash on hand was fairly minimal in those days. So where were we meditating in those days of the first annual financial report and the first general reports? We were in what we consider to be the small room at 2324 South Highland Drive for a period of 8 years, from 1976 to 1984. It was upstairs here. And as recalled by two of our members, there were a tire store and a locksmith downstairs in those days. Of course, the building in the past 40 years has since been remodeled. It's been recorded as 2330 Highland Drive in the Clark County records. But back in those days, there were bold letters emblazoned on it that said Brew's Building, as recalled by one of our members, Carrie Zimmerman, and that is because it was owned by Robert Brew from 77 to 90. And in the Clark County records, it's considered a loft style building. As you can see, it sort of looks like a loft upstairs, and we were in the loft. And back in those days, well, we had an average of attendance of about 4 to 8, which you saw on the general report, and our rent was $86 a month. And then we moved down the hall in the year that Convocation was canceled in 1984. So yes, 1984 was the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. All the hotels were taken. There was no way to have an annual convocation for Self-Realization Fellowship. And as it turns out, 1983, the year before, was the last convocation held at the Biltmore Hotel. You can see from one of the old magazines that Sri Dayamata was addressing the devotees. And you can see Brother Anandamoy in the bottom picture, also addressing the devotees in 1983. Dayamataji had not actually come to convocation in 81 or 82. And then you can see from the magazine how it said that it was postponed until 85. Another from the magazine. And this is a talk by Paramahansa Yogananda, and this was given in 1932. At that time, in 1932, Paramahansa Yogananda held a banquet at the headquarters for the athletes from his native India, and he was particularly pleased that the field hockey team from his motherland, India, was the gold medal winner. Here's a few extracts from his speech. I want to thank you for joining me in celebrating this grand occasion. It establishes that we are all children of the one Father. The names of the different nations are only names of different brothers living in one large family of the world. I think the Olympic Games have done more than perhaps anything else to impress on mankind the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. And I pray that someday we will live in a United States of the world with God as our president and truth as our common law. And then after skipping 1 year, 1985, the convocations started being held at the Bonaventure Hotel, primarily because of the renovation of the Biltmore, which converted the music room, where Master went into Mahasamadhi, into the new lobby of the Biltmore. But of course, also the Bonaventure had much more space for meetings. Here is the SRF magazine cover for the first convocation held at the Bonaventure. And apparently that was when the first CD of Guruji was released, Beholding the One and All. Then, in 1984, that same year, we moved to the larger room at Highland Drive for about 9 years until June 1993. Of course, larger is a relative term, as you will see in a moment. Our attendance went up a little bit to average of 6 to 15. The rent went up from $86 a month to $150 a month. Sunday reading services began here in late 1985. Prior to that, as you saw, we only held meditation services on Sunday. Now, speaking of this larger room where we met for 9 years, here it is. Not real large, but it served the purposes of the group at that time. Now, this picture shows our old altar, shows 4 chairs that were used. It also shows one of the meditation benches that was used back in those days. 3 of them were built by Dave Morgan, who was the brother of Ed Morgan. Ed had left in around 1980. And a 4th bench that was built by Nika Jolly, Tim Jolly's wife. And actually, of these 4 benches, the last one departed our current chapel in 2017, was given away. And these benches held 4 devotees each. Sit still, please. One little tiny movement and you disturbed everyone. So we really learned how to sit still back in those days. And here is a picture of the still surviving Nika built bench in Tim Jolly's home. And here's a picture of the group harmonium in those days, 1983 actually, or 82. And it's still our group harmonium, acquired for $550 back in those days. Quite a good harmonium, has lasted 40 years. And here was our bookcase back in those days until we replaced it about 5 years ago with a beautiful one built by Jim Robinson. Now, let us talk about some monastic visits in 91 and 92. The group had actually been requesting visits from monastics for many years, but because our group was so small, the center department had to decline our requests. But finally, we got 2 monastic visits during the time we were at South Highland Drive. So in 1991, the summer, Brahmachari George, who is now Brother Bhumananda, and Brahmachari Miles visited our group. There are no known pictures, but from a 1992 letter by Daisy Morgan to Brahmachari Bradley, who was in charge of center department at that time, who is now Brother Narayananda, serving right now in Phoenix, as far as I know. She wrote, "Please give our thanks and gratitude to Brahmachari Miles and Brahmachari George for the wonderful visit to our group last summer. It was a beautiful blessing to have them meditate with us and share that video of Sri Dayamata and Brother Anandamoy with this group. We will cherish that evening in our hearts." Here is a modern photo of Brother Bhumananda. And then here is a photo from those times of Dave and Daisy Morgan and their daughter Sandy. The second known monastic visit was October 10, 1992, with again Brahmachari Miles and Mr. James Wing, who Daisy called Rays of the Divine, picture of James Wing. There are no other pictures actually of that particular monastic visit. And then shortly after that we moved, 1993. So after about a year of planning, the group felt they needed a larger space. They moved to our Channel 10 Drive location, and we were there from July 1993 to November 1999. As you can see on this picture of the building, the address was 2235 East Flamingo, but the street you can see on the right, it was along Channel 10 Drive. And at this location, we had an average attendance of 16 to 19, and the rent was $400 a month. So the rent went up quite a bit, as did the attendance. And here are some additional pictures. This is where we normally parked, at the south end of the building. these rear steps went up to the courtyard, and our suite was just on the right after you got to the head of the stairs. And here is a picture of the outside of our suite. These double doors actually went into a hallway, two hallways, one that went straight ahead and one that went to the right to our suite. And you can see a couple of our meditation benches piled up outside. And our suite was right across the hallway from this double window. Here is a picture of the inside of our suite, and on the left is the window that if you'd go across the hallway, you'd go to the outside windows. This was the original furniture arrangement in there for 1 year, for 1993. The old altar, the lectern, the benches. And one advantage this new chapel had was a book room, which the one on Highland Drive didn't really have. We had this strange mirrored column in the book room. And what else was special about 1993, the year we moved to the Channel 10 Drive location? It was the 1993 Centennial SRF Convocation held at the Bonaventure on the 100th anniversary of Guruji's birth. And this was the largest in-person convocation ever, before or since, with 6,000 devotees in attendance. Here's a few pictures from it from the SRF magazine. You can see Sri Dayamata on the left, Sri Mrinalini Mata on the right, both of whom were there for the opening. So we had two presidents at the same time. Here is a picture of a Mother Center driveway from that convocation. And compare that to the 300 attendees in 1951 from the second annual convocation that we showed earlier in this slideshow, so 20 times as many. There were 5 simultaneous language translations at the 1993 convocation, 52 countries, and as I said, the opening program was Sri Dayamata and Sri Mrinalini Mata. And a few remembrances from that convocation from some of our old-time devotees and coordinators. We have a picture here of what you might call a confluence of coordinators for our group in 1993. So left to right are Muriel Lee, who was in our group from 1990 to 2012. Then Gloria Holbrook, whom we've talked about, who was in our group for 30 years, from 72 to 2002. Justin Halliday is another coordinator. He was here for nearly 20 years. And then in the right-hand picture, you also see Robert Furlow, who was here from 84 to present, standing between Justin and Muriel. And some fun pictures from 1993. These pictures from December 17, 1993, at the SRF Open House at Mother Center, where it was pouring rain and also blessings. You can see the umbrella there. Here's Justin and Gloria. Great picture with Brother Anandamoy. And now Gloria and Muriel with Brother Ramananda. Everybody has an umbrella. And this is an appropriate time, as long as we're talking about coordinators from the old days. Our current elder statesman devotee in our group. Who is that? Well, the humble honor goes to our current 2022 Chief Garland Maker, former fireman and former coordinator, Tim Jolly, who's been in the group for 40 years. He's carrying a bag on the left with flowers when we greeted Brother Balananda about 5 years ago. And here's a very old picture of him when he was a fireman, showing some kids' fire truck back in those days. And now, right after we moved into Channel 10 Drive, not long after, a few months, 1993, the monastics again honored us with a visit. And this time it was Brahmachari Richard, now Brother Kevalananda, and Brahmachari Keith. And so these are from 2 letters to Brahmachari Bradley, who was in charge of Center Department. What a blessing that visit was for us, as most of us rarely get to temples or to Mother Center for such inspiration. The video, which I believe was Glimpses of a Life Divine, made us realize how beautiful Master is. And please thank Brahmachari Paul, who is now Brother Vijayananda, for putting that plan in motion. So here's Brother Kevalananda from a later visit to our group. And here's a picture of Brahmachari Keith from back in those days. So 2 years after that monastic visit, our group began planning for a new altar in December 1995. And we began planning by a trip to Lake Shrine to see what their altar construction was like, since that's when they were building the new Lake Shrine temple. And we even have a piece of it, of their altar and our altar. And Gloria and David went down. This is a picture of the inside, the panel lights in the Lake Shrine altar. David is our chief altar builder for our Las Vegas meditation group altar. And there's a picture of Gloria and David during the construction of the Lake Shrine Temple, the same trip in December '95. Here's a picture of our assistant Las Vegas altar builder, Bob Furlow, in front of the Wishing Well Mandir on Mother Center. And David and Gloria also went to the Christmas open house at Mother Center in 1995 during that. And our altar construction in Las Vegas began in April 1996 and lasted over a year till May 1997. Here is a picture of the construction quite far along. A picture of the inside. You can see how it was of the panel lights patterned after Lake Shrine altar. Here is when it was partially painted. You can see the lotuses painted. And when was it installed? In late June of 1997. We installed the new altar at the Channel Drive suite. Here it is, after it was just moved in with the help of Walker Furniture and one of our longtime members, Larry Alterwitz. So 2022 is both the 50th or golden anniversary of our group itself and the 25th anniversary, the silver anniversary of our altar. And of course, it's the 70th anniversary of Guruji's Mahasamadhi. And then, just a couple of years following the installation of the new altar, we purchased some new meditation chairs, which you can see here, around the time of Lahiri Mahashaya's Mahasamadhi in 1999. And we had the help of a long-term member, Larry Alterwitz, and his company Walker Furniture, in ordering and transporting them. Here you can see Larry in his younger days, a little bit more hair, and also Kerry Zimmerman, who helped with the move, and David, who helped with the move. And at the same time, you can see through our hallway window and then through the window in the exterior of the building to the courtyard. And these chairs we purchased along with the Los Gatos Center, who was buying quite a bit more of these chairs that are very similar to the chairs currently at Lake Shrine. So we were very happy to get these chairs. I believe they cost about $7,000 for 30 plus chairs. And then not long after the installation of these chairs, we grew enough that we decided we needed to move again. So we moved to our next location. We moved really just down the street, down Flamingo, west on Flamingo, to 1555 East Flamingo, Suite 333. We moved in November '99, and we stayed there for a very long time, 13 years almost, to April 2012. Now here's a picture when you drive in towards our suite. Suite 333 was in the back, south of this complex. You can see the complex in an aerial view. You can see Flamingo. You can see we drove quite a ways back to the back parking lot at the bottom of the picture. And if you look in the center of the picture, you can see where we were right next to the Olive Garden there. This Suite 333 is no longer there. It's now called Suite 150. Our average attendance was 14 to 21 devotees. The rent went up more than double to $1,000 a month. And it was a very bad air conditioner in this suite. Very bad. It was an evaporative type of central system, always going down, not working. One time it went to 99 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer when the AC went down, and it melted the altar candles. They just drooped over, fell over. And our neighbors weren't that great. We had a bookie for a neighbor who frequently smoked. The smoke went into our suite. He took bets during our Sunday services. We could hear him because the walls were not that well insulated. So it was quite an experience, one you could only expect in Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. For those that were here when we were in this suite, here's a few more pictures of it. This is a picture of the back parking lot where we always parked, and the arrow shows where the suite was. And this is a picture of the front of the suite, 2 pictures. This is a picture of the interior with the new altar, the new chairs. Looking towards the back of the room, and where we had a few bookroom items displayed. We did enjoy some monastic visits there. Took a few years, but less than 5 years after we moved in, we had a monastic visit in January 2004 with Brahmachari Kirk, now Brother Sarvananda, who serves now in 2022 at Lake Shrine, and Brahmachari Rich. So here's a picture of them outside our suite at that time. And the devotees from those days. So I labeled their names since it was kind of our first picture of a monastic visit and the devotees. Many of whom are still with us, some who have since departed, moved out of town, or departed the planet. And so we had other monastic visits at the 1555 East Flamingo location. So although it was a difficult location physically, it was very blessed. So we had one 2 years after the previous visit with Brahmachari Paul, who is now Brother Vijayananda, and Brahmachari Rich. And here's a picture where we had a lunch with them at the Tamba Indian restaurant on the Strip. And you can see the devotees. You can see Brahmachari Paul on the left towards the end. And Brahmachari Rich is the taller person in the middle on the right. At that time, we also had an evening meditation and satsang at the chapel. So we had another monastic visit just a few months later in 2006 from Brother Devananda, who was driving through Las Vegas on his way to Mesquite to visit his parents. And this is quite an interesting story because he led our reading service with acute appendicitis and didn't even know it. Look at that smile. That's what being a renunciant will do for you. He had called me and asked me to lead the meditation service because his stomach was bothering him, but nevertheless he led the reading service, and afterwards his parents took him to the hospital. Now, we had another monastic visit a couple of years later in 2008, which was probably not as eventful as the one with Devananda. This time we had Brother Kevalananda and Brother Sarvananda. And we had lots of devotees. And you can see Leo Cox on the left of the picture. He is the direct disciple of Master who lived in Phoenix and tells the interesting story of Master when he came up from Phoenix, when Leo came up from Phoenix to visit Master and had the list of questions in his pocket and could never remember to ask Master the questions because Master radiated so much love that Leo was just taken in by it and really could barely talk. So he was a member of our group for 2 or 3 years, as I recall. And for that visit, Brother Sarvananda and some of his devotees, you can see Larry Alterwitz there, went again to the Tamba restaurant to eat with the monastics. Another picture in the Tamba restaurant. Another one. So we had one final monastic visit at the 1555 East Flamingo location in the spring of 2010. This was with Brother Sarvananda and Brahmachari Girish. So we did have quite the blessings at this location of our chapel with so many visits. And here you can see a bit later picture of Brother Sarvananda at the lake shrine and a picture of Brahmachari Girish, who has since left the ashram from around this time of 2010. We had our outing at the Gardens Park in Summerlin. We don't actually have any pictures of that event, but here's what the location looked like. And we had one other interesting event during that time. Several of us devotees took the brothers to the MGM Grand to see Ka, the Cirque du Soleil show, but it wasn't particularly spiritual, so it was not exactly the favorite of the brothers, but they humored us. Now, to go back to the context of SRF history, this was a very important time. Our beloved third president, Sri Dayamataji, passed on November 30th, 2010, and her memorial service was held on December 12th, 2010. She had served as our Sangamata and president for 55 years. A few of us went out to California. Here is the picture of the viewing at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Here is a photo of the inside of the Pasadena Civic Auditorium where the memorial service was held and led by the senior monastics and the other monastics. You can see, for example, some on the left, some on the right up front. This is the auditorium where Sri Dayamata gave many Christmas satsangas over the years. Here is a closer view of the stage with her casket and the beautiful flowers. Her memorial service is still available on YouTube. And this was the time of the year for the Christmas open house. So you can see the tree on the right there. So for this Christmas open house, they had a very large display of photos of her life and work and mementos. So sad time, but wonderfully spiritual event. And then one of the last things we have from that location is a picture of the Christmas meditation in 2010. We had it decorated very nicely, as we always did with poinsettias, provided in those days by Bob Furlow. And then the next significant event in our history was we moved finally away from that difficult location in 2012, where we are now in 2022. Not the same suite, but the same address, same building at 6600 West Charleston, Suite 116. We were in this suite from April 2012 to October 2017. Here's a picture of the outside of the building where we are still located. This was our inaugural event, inaugural tea, you might call it, for when we first started there. You can see through the open door, you can actually see the ante room and then the main chapel room and the altar. Here's another view. In this view, the suite is actually on right down the end of the interior courtyard. You can see the 116. It's a very nice location. We had quite an attendance there. Average attendance of 23 to 30. Our rent had gone up somewhat to $1,127 per month. Still not too high. Another picture of the tea. Now, here are some pictures of the interior of our Suite 116 during the 5 years that we were there. You can see the book room on the left. The pictures taken in the ante room. Here's the main chapel when we still had our old lectern. Now we had some nice events there. This was about a year and a half after we moved in. We invited Ginger de Paris from California, Glendale Temple, to give us some training in Kirtan, because we wanted to start a Kirtan group. So that was a nice event. Here's a Christmas time. You can see the garland around Jesus' picture, the Christmas tree in the ante room. Now we also had a couple of monastic visits there. The first one was in end of February 2014, after we'd been there a couple of years with Brahmachari Lin, who is now Brother Padmananda, and Brahmachari Jason, who is now Brother Bhimananda, head of Center Department. So you can see Brother Padmananda, Brahmachari Lin on the left, on the lower row, and next to him is in the brown vest is Brahmachari Jason, again, now Brother Bhimananda, head of Center Department. And here's Brother Bhimananda giving us a inspiring class. Again, brother. Continuing with this same monastic visit, we had an outing at Wetlands Park, which was, I think it had just rained, so the park was very, very unusually full of water. It's actually quite nice. And obviously it rained a little bit while we were there. Not bad though. And we had a nice intimate luncheon, you might call it, because there weren't very many people that went on this, only probably 12 of us all together. But it was a great event. Then the next monastic visit, which was about four years into our stay in Suite 116, came in February 2016 with Brother Balananda and Brahmachari Jason. So Brother Balananda is now the head minister in the Encinitas Temple, and again, Brahmachari Jason, or Brother Bhimananda's head of center department. Here is us showering Brother Balananda with rose petals when he entered, which we can credit this idea to Tim Jolly, and they loved it. And here's both of them sitting at the head of a class. This was part of the class where they handed out something for an interactive part of the class, handed out a saying of Masters to each person that each person had to read. Just a wonderful event, as all monastic visits are. And this is Brother Bhimananda taking one of these handouts, sayings from Brother Balananda. Again, part of the event was, of course, an outing. This time we went to Springs Preserve. Off of Valley View. You can see some of our devotees, and the two brothers are on the right, and some of our devotees. This was another fantastic event with really... So this was a very joyous outing with the monastics. You can see a photo of all the devotees who were there, and beautiful smiles on everyone's faces. We even benefited from a spontaneous satsang given by Brother Balananda, which was just awesome. And you notice several people in short sleeves, so you know it was very beautiful weather, even though it was in February. And the next important event in the timeline of Self-Realization Fellowship, as well as all the meditation groups, was the passing of our fourth president, Sri Mrinalini Mata, and her memorial service was held on August 11th, 2017, actually at the convocation on a Friday, led by Brother Chidananda, who we did not know at that time would be the next president. And this year was the 100th anniversary of the founding of Master's work. You go to Satsanga Society of India. Here you see a picture of the two presidents, because Brother Chidananda always used to help Mrinalini Mata up on the stage at convocation. So obviously this is a prior year, probably the previous year, 2016. And this is a picture of her at the convocation. And I believe this is 2013 convocation. So that was a momentous year in the history of our group, also because we moved just a couple of months later. And we moved in October 2017 to our current suite, which is just a couple of doors down from the previous suite. We're at Suite 119 currently at the 6600 West Charleston building. Here is a picture of the outside of the suite on the northeast corner of the building. We park in the back here. And here is a picture of the double door entrance to our suite from the interior courtyard of the complex. Here is a picture of the interior, the sanctuary room where we all meditate. A picture of the events room where you enter from the double doors from the courtyard, and the interior sanctuary room is through those double brown doors, which are no longer there due to fire code restrictions. You can see here a picture of our very first inaugural service in this suite, which was well attended. There is Jeff leading the service. And before the pandemic, we had a large attendance, 25 to 40 people would come every Sunday. Our rent had more than doubled to $27.40. Now, of course, we've had some wonderful events also at the new location. This is one that occurred just a couple of months after we moved in around Christmas in 2017, called New Altar Images. Here were the original altar images that were in the altar for perhaps 20 years, but in the new large room, they become a little bit small. So Jim had the idea to replace them with larger pictures, such as at many of the SRF temples. So we had an unveiling ceremony, which was fun. Here's the old images. And then here are the new images. Shazam, very beautiful. And we've had monastic visit, actually a couple of monastic visits to the new location. This one was in 2019, about 2 years after we moved in, with Brother Devananda, who serves at the Phoenix Temple. He's in the foreground here, garlanded. Brother Muktananda, who is in charge of computer stuff at Mother Center, is in the background. We garlanded them. We're throwing flowers on them, flower petals. There's a beautiful picture of them garlanded. Here's a photo from this event of them lecturing to a packed house. Another photo showing how the house is packed with devotees. It was a beautiful event. And one more photo. Now, of course, as usual, with this visit by Brother Devananda and Brother Muktananda in 2019, we had an outing. This was a Colorado river boating adventure at Willow Beach. Started at Willow Beach Marina with 2 boats that Tim Jolly had rented. It was his idea for this. So it was a wonderful outing. You can see Tim and Brother Devananda there. Brother Muktananda in one of the 2 boats. Traveling along the river. This is in Arizona below the Hoover Dam. So some wonderful scenic views. Fun by all those who went. And then this next picture was after that. It was a social, it was a luncheon, a meal with the monastics. So it was just a wonderful visit with them. And you can see on the wall there in this last picture, the painting that Marie has given to the Las Vegas Meditation Group that now symbolizes our group in our newsletters and email. And then we're getting near the end of this 50th anniversary presentation, but I thought it would be appropriate to show Indian Night through the years. This is a tradition that we started in 2012, and here is that version at a restaurant, Indian restaurant. This is the 2014 Indian Night, which we had at Hanya's house, and we actually formed a kirtan group for this Indian Night, and it was really, for so little practiced, it was very good, excellent kirtan group. And then we assembled our wonderful giant elephant, cardboard elephant, to take pictures of people. And of course we served the masters first, and that was but this was in 2016 at Gandhi Restaurant. That's a little table at the Gandhi Restaurant. Continuing, same event in 2016. There's Marie's picture of Radha Krishna, her painting. That was a very large event, and this is the food buffet for 2016. It was awesome. And here's 2017 at the Tamba restaurant on the Strip, which is no longer there. It was raised to make room for some giant high-rises. 2018, we had the Indian Night in the events room at the chapel. Again, you can see Marie's painting in the background. So the pandemic brought some significant changes. You can see how we put some of our chairs in the events room and spread them apart so people didn't have to be close to each other. Everybody wears a mask. Attendance was not as high, obviously. You can see us checking. There's Janet checking Elizabeth for her temperature. We have Wendy and Ajay there. And you can see the, I don't know what you call them, Gestapo in the back. They look like Ed Rooney and Ajay Gupta, kind of keeping things under control. Very spread out chairs. Very spread out. Then we got the Pope Mobile. Not sure what you call it. The plexiglass barriers that Jim built for the service reader, since the service reader could not wear a mask. It was quite the time, quite the time. But we did have a video camera provided by David to project the altar into the events room. And then after the pandemic was over, in the summer of 2022, we purchased a large 75-inch TV video screen. You can see some of the construction for that. And actually that's where it's going, but the reason for this picture is that behind Jim and Karen, Jim did the carpentry in the building, is an actual window. We have a false wall in our chapel now. Behind the wall are windows on the outside of the building, the brick building. So that's actually a view of the actual neighborhood. And now we inaugurated it for the meditation by Brother Chidananda. You can see it installed. There's also a screen, a blind that is electrified that goes down over in front of the TV. And this was the inauguration of the video screen, the 3-hour meditation at Convocation 2022 by Brother Chidananda. So that's been a great addition to the chapel. Now, we almost had a monastic visit in the fall of 2022 with Brother Devananda and Brahmachari Daniel, but unfortunately COVID was still an issue, and one of the monastics contracted that up in Portland, so we had to cancel. But we had reserved a wonderful picnic area up at Mount Charleston. This was a beautiful location. We could not get a refund, so 9 of us still went there. We had a group meditation, you can see, being led by Jeff on the picnic bench. We had some just fantastic hiking, perfect weather. It's a shame others couldn't come because it was one of the best days ever, so we enjoyed that. So now we come to where this presentation was actually shown at our 50th anniversary celebration on October 2nd, 2022, minus the monastics, but we still had a nice turnout. We had Karen made us a banner. We had a social event, which was very nice. You can see here David lighting the 50th anniversary cake. The golden anniversary. And then you can see David presenting this presentation to the devotees. God is love. We've seen that manifested throughout this presentation, throughout the 50 years of the Las Vegas meditation group. As Master said, God is love. His plan for creation can only be rooted in love. A famous quotation of Master's from the autobiography of a yogi. This wonderful picture of Brother Achalananda and Brother Santoshananda shows that radiation of love. In Dayamata with some of the monastics, you can see Brother Swami Shmarananda on the right and Brother Bhavananda in the middle. Master playing his Veena many moons ago, a painting of that. And that love of God that we talked about on the previous slide that is so present in Self-Realization Fellowship and our Guru's teaching was never more manifest than in this group picture from the monastic visit with Brother Devananda and Brother Muktananda in October 2019. You can see it on the smiles of everyone, all the devotees, and that's what's been present for the last 50 years in the Las Vegas Meditation Group. And we don't want to have an ending. We want to start with a new beginning in 2023. So the next 50 years begins. And actually, it began already with a monastic visit by Brother Bhimananda, who's been here several times, and Brahmachari Daniel, our current group supervisor in Center Department. This occurred in February 2023. And you'll see some new faces and some of the old faces, all here smiling with the love of God. And may that continue for the next 50 years.